If you don't know me, I'm Amy Juergens. I am the director of the Entrepreneurship Center and Focus Suites. I've been in this role since April, so fairly new. So it's an honor to have Kelly here today.
We'll see in about half hour.
So Kelly has been in your role for about 8 years.
Yeah, now pushing 9 years.
And before that, you were in the Air Force. I saw on LinkedIn. I stalked you through LinkedIn.
Awesome.
And so I'd like to know a little bit of information. So Kelly's going to talk about his role and how he helps nonprofits in our area. And I'm just going to go ahead and let you take it away.
Awesome. Morning, everybody. My name's Kelly. Just don't call me late for dinner. Don't worry about my last name. Little background on me, which I always hate to do. Grew up in western Colorado on a ranch. Went to the University of No Credit, otherwise known as Northern Colorado. Got a degree, wanted to be a pilot. Thankfully, I couldn't be a pilot. I started out in combat control in the Air Force, which if you look it up, it's Air Force Special Forces doing cool stuff. Middle of combat control training, I busted my shoulder, got into air traffic control, and just took off from there. 24 years, I did 4 combat deployments, was squadron commander twice, ran an inspection team that inspected all of the airfields in the continental United States. So compliance is really kind of in my blood. I really love it. Got out of the military, said I'm never working for the government again. And so far I haven't, now that I think about it. I got a master's degree in aeronautical engineering while I was in the Air Force. Went back to school at UNO, got a degree in geographic information systems, and wanted to get a cool GIS job because I just love maps, and I have been a victim of bad maps my entire Air Force career. That didn't work out, so I started getting this little job at this little place called Nonprofit Association of the Midlands, and it became abundantly clear very soon that I needed to know what nonprofits did, so I went back and got a master's degree in nonprofit management. So I'm sitting here in front of you with 3 master's degrees and absolutely no knowledge of anything whatsoever. So what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit about Nonprofit Association of the Midlands. We very rarely address a group like this. We normally address homogenous groups like a chamber or a civic engagement group, something like that. So I threw together a bunch of slides. If it doesn't make sense, blame me. What we're going to do is discuss a little bit about what we do at the Nonprofit Association. There we go. Okay, Nonprofit Association of the Midlands is a 501c3 membership organization. That simply means that we answer to our members through our board. We are a nonprofit. We're also expected to be the best nonprofit because we can't walk around the state and telling people in nonprofits how to run their nonprofit if we suck at doing what we do. So we do a ton of research and a ton of networking and contacting. Our job is to be the collective voice for nonprofits, kind of like the state chamber is the kind of collective voice for businesses. We like to call ourselves the state chamber for service. If you want to serve in a nonprofit, we will help your nonprofit get bigger, better, faster, stronger, more. The cool thing about us is we have a set of 244 legal compliance checklist items slaved to Nebraska state law, Iowa state law, South Dakota state law, and Kansas state law, as well as federal legislation that nonprofit leaders can go through and have a warm fuzzy that they're obeying the law when they operate their nonprofit. We always get involved or try to get involved with the back-end business operations. We are not mission experts. We don't know anything about rescuing cats or protecting the groundwater or school rights or anything like that. We know about how to run nonprofits. And there's research out there that says if you run your back-end business operations better, your mission is going to get better on the front end, mainly because people will trust you because you're transparent, you're accountable, and you do what you say you're going to do with that public trust that you have when people donate money and don't have to pay taxes on that money. We'll talk about that in a little bit. For nonprofit people, we provide a bunch of employee benefits from retirement plan. Do you know there's a retirement plan for nonprofit employees? We run it. We have an employee assistance program. We have health insurance. We have a boatload of professional development training, which is really, really important to get nonprofit people smarter. And then, of course, education is always our big Koepsell. I've talked a little bit about the guidelines and principles, best practices. We do a guidelines and principles analysis every year. So imagine you have 14,068 nonprofits in the state of Nebraska. I think it's 68 this quarter. We have about 2,000 taking all of these checklists. So there are 12,000 nonprofits out there that may or may not be legally compliant. We can't prove it. But we have about 2,000 taking all these checklists. In December, we shut down the checklist system and we do aggregate reporting on how nonprofits are doing. So all of those no answers that nonprofits answer, we put those together, we aggregate them and say, what do nonprofits suck at? And every year, imagine that, it comes up with board governance, financial management, and human resources. Almost across the board. Talk to any nonprofit leader, they will tell you those are the 3 large problems that they have. So what we do with that information is we craft our training program for the next year. Last year it was program evaluation. Imagine that if you're a funder and you have a $10 million endowment and you want to give away 5% every year, you want to give 5% to a nonprofit that can do what they said, that is going to make that community change that you want to help them see. Well, if they don't have any program evaluation data to walk in and say, look, we're doing really good, and if you want to be a part of this awesome movement, you need to help us do good, give us some more money. Most nonprofits walk into the endowments or to the foundation and say, we're kind of doing good rescuing cats. We rescued some cats last year. Could you give us some more money? Doesn't work like that. Just like making a business decision, you have to have the data behind your program to show that you're increasing the quality of life in the community. So I talked a little bit about financial management being one of the top 3. We actually have accountants on staff. We have 3 accountants on our staff, and we do books for about 60 of our members. And they are full-time. I mean, we're actually going to probably hire another person here in early 2023. Just think of it, if you're trying to rescue cats and your hair is on fire trying to rescue cats, the last thing you want to do is have to do accounting stuff and payroll and balance the bank account and all that kind of stuff. So we have people that do that for our members. We have 2 major conferences a year. The Central Nebraska is out in Kearney in March this year, and we have the Nonprofit Summit of the Midlands in La Vista. That's November 10th. It is a great event. If you want to meet nonprofit people and figure out how passionate these people are about serving their community, that's the event to go to. If you want a free ticket, send me an email, we can talk. We'll see what we can do. We have some professional development cohorts. What we learned over the last 10 years, 8 years, is people that move from high-level program management into the C-suite level or C-suite type in a nonprofit are not equipped. They're not ready to go. You can imagine kids these days, I think I can say kids these days, I want to be an executive director, I want to be a CFO, I want to be whatever, I want to lead the organization. Well, you're not ready. So what we developed was a year-long cohort, kind of like Leadership Nebraska. I'm sure the Chamber has Leadership Lincoln kind of thing. It's for nonprofits, Nonprofit Executive Institute, and it takes those people to the next level to be able to lead. Immediately after that, we found out we had another HR problem with people who were doing the work in the nonprofit, rescuing the cats, being promoted to program managers and leaders of 2 or 3 or 4 or many more people. They weren't equipped either. So now we have a Rising Leaders Institute that teaches those type of people to move up to the next level and be a better supervisor, be a better program evaluator, and think a little bit more strategically. We talked about a retirement plan a little bit, health insurance, and employee assistance program. I talk a lot. I'm an air traffic controller, so I talk fast. Any questions up to this point? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
You talked about providing accounting.
Yes, sir.
For a fee.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Obviously, it's the member rate. You can't get our services unless you're a member, and the member rate that we give is, we go through every year and we figure out what the street price is, and then we have a big form. Association management science is a science. I mean, you can study association management at the graduate level, and we go through and we make sure that our formulas aren't onerous on the members, but at the same time, we're not undercutting the street price so much that other accountants say, hey, you got to stop doing this because you're stealing money from us. And to be honest, lots of our members, street accountants don't want to do anyway. So by the time we get done with them and they grow and they build their capacity, then their chart of accounts and their whole system is good enough so that if it gets handed off to a good accountant, then they can take it and run with it.
I imagine there's some intricacies of that accounting that, like you said, street
Yeah, yeah.
don't want to mess with. You're probably better off not, using your accountants to begin with.
Exactly. Exactly. Just like lawyers, there are no nonprofit lawyers. There are really no nonprofit accountants, but there are accountants who know nonprofit books a lot better. Simple delineation. Assets equal liability plus equity for your business, but in nonprofit world, it's assets equal liability plus net assets. You can't take that equity home with you at the end of the year. It has to go back to the mission. So we call it net assets, which is from December 1st to January 1st, transfers back over to the mission, so it resources the mission further into the year. I know a lot more about nonprofit accounting than I want to. Yes, sir.
What's your annual membership fee right now?
Excellent. What's our annual membership fee? We do not want money to be a barrier to nonprofits, so we have a tiered due structure. At the lowest level, if you're spending $50,000 or less to run your mission, it's $50 a year. And that membership is for everybody, the board, all the people, all the volunteers, things like that. If you're spending over $25 million to run your operation, it's $1,300 a year. So again, back to association management science, my average member in 2021 paid $327. So everybody underneath that basically got subsidized by everybody above that. Nebraska Medicine is a nonprofit. They're members of ours. They don't need my professional development. They don't need my accounting. They don't need my HR. They don't need my board governance training. They're basically being a member of the community so that they can help out smaller nonprofits grow and build their capacity. And most leaders understand that. Okay, we talked about guidelines and principles and what nonprofits are not good at. The way we formulate training is really threefold. We do a lot of research. Everyone except for one on our staff has a master's degree at least. We all talk to our members on a regular basis. Think about 2,000 members. If I make 6-8 calls a day, I touch every member once a year. So that is a huge, huge opportunity, but it's also a huge burden. When we do make a member contact, we record it in our CRM and we aggregate all that information. So when people say, I need a resource or training on X, we add it up, and when the adding gets big enough, we go find a resource, create a resource, or buy a resource for our members. Our assistance programs are really based on everything that the nonprofits put into their mission on the back-end business side. They need videography, they need accounting, they need real estate, they need all the stuff that you provide, and they're gonna pay for it. It's just a matter of getting that outlay of finances as low as possible for the highest quality that still meets the mission, so that the more of the money that they're bringing in and as donations or program services go toward that mission. We have a business partner program where for-profits sign up to be a partner. They pay a fee. We advertise them on our website, and then we point our members to that website when they ask. Right now it is strategic planners. If you're a nonprofit strategic planner, you can make a boatload of money these days. The problem is, if you're a nonprofit strategic planner, you can make a boatload of money these days, so everybody is now a nonprofit strategic planner. They really come out of people really come out of the woodwork sometimes when the opportunity is there. The other method we use for doing the assistance is that guidelines and principles program. Like I said, it's broken down into 12 areas of nonprofit management, and all the legal questions are there, so we know what's going on in nonprofit land when they answer those questions. These are the different 12 areas of nonprofit management that we go through, from communication all the way to volunteer management. A couple that you might be a little bit surprised on. Evaluation is really the heart and soul of doing your nonprofit mission. If you don't know the good you're doing, it's really hard to be sustainable and ask for more money to keep doing good. So data collection, both quantitative and qualitative, is absolutely critical in nonprofit world. Fundraising is a whole cat unto itself. The fundraising book is about 4 inches thick. I've gone through it like 6 times, and most of the time I can't remember what's in it because it's complex, and you can actually get degrees in fundraising. Board governance is similar to for-profits, but while there's no prohibition against paying nonprofit board members, think about going to a foundation and saying, yeah, we pay our nonprofit board members, but we'd like a donation from you. Well, maybe you need to stop paying your board members, and then I'll give you the money. Anyway, human resources, IT, planning, we talked a little bit about that. Public policy and advocacy is always a sticky point, especially with new nonprofit leaders, because we've always heard that nonprofits can't lobby, they can't stand up for a cause or a campaign or a candidate. Well, a lot of that is true, a lot of that is not true. You can, as a nonprofit, stand up and vote or influence legislation for or against your mission. That's kind of what we expect you to do. I mean, think about it. If you're working on a problem and all you're attacking is the symptoms, why would you not try to work with the government and the for-profit sector to eliminate the problem through legislation or taxes or coerced help so you don't have to deal with the symptoms anymore? So lobbying is allowed, it is available. There are some things you can't do. You can't stand up for a specific candidate, obviously. And there are limits on it placed on you, on nonprofits by the IRS in terms of money and time. If you go over a certain level of money and time with your mission money to solve the problems through lobbying, then you have to fill out more paperwork, and you get to the next level and they basically cut you off. Strategic alliances are critical. You probably understand that. Transparency and accountability is key. You are not going to give your money to a nonprofit who keeps secrets, doesn't tell you what they do with the money, and doesn't communicate, right? You want your money to go to solve community problems. The way you do that is through this legal entity called a nonprofit. If they're not being transparent and accountable, you're not going to give them the money because they're not showing you they can do what they want or do what you want. And then volunteer management is pretty self-explanatory. Right now we have 791 nonprofits plus all the other members that we have there. We are one of 36 state associations. Very, very interesting dynamic across the nation. We belong to the National Council of Nonprofits, which is a volunteer federation of state associations. No state association is mandatory. You don't have to have one. But if you do have one and you want to be part of the National Council, you have to do certain things. You have to represent X number of nonprofits. You have to have a communication capability. You have to have the ability to advocate at your state legislature, things like that. The really interesting thing is we in Nebraska are really, really good at membership and training nonprofits. Imagine that. California and North Carolina are really good at public policy and influencing legislation. Michigan and Alaska are really good at providing back-end business services. They do accounting and videographer. They have lawyer on staff if you need a lawyer. They do HR assistants, all that kind of stuff for nonprofits. There are different state associations across the nation that focus on different things. The neat thing is if we have a weak area at our association level, there are 36 other organizations we can go to that are good at something else, and we can go, hey, give me some love. And you would not believe how awesome nonprofit land is when it comes to, we call it R&D, rip off and duplicate. Our associations love sharing information. We started our salary and benefit survey for the nonprofit sector about 10 years ago. We knew that Colorado and Minnesota had really good ones. We said, hey, we're starting this. Could you give us some help? We had probably 8 or 10 hours of meetings on how to do it. And then they said, here's the Word document, just copy and paste it and give us credit. Otherwise, we had to make up a 200-page document with all this salary and data, and they gave us the Excel spreadsheets so we could crunch the numbers and the data. Nobody does that.
I would guess vice versa.
And absolutely, and we give away stuff like you would not believe. We want the community to get better. We want people's quality of life to get better. So what we do is push out as much as we can, as high quality as we can.
Go ahead. For you, Kelly. So, Bless you, John.
Thank you.
As entrepreneurs, it's known that we have a tendency to be passionate about our business, but we're also passionate about other causes.
Right.
So in my short time here, I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs that have said, I would like to start my own nonprofit. For whatever they are passionate about. Maybe it has to do with their business, maybe it doesn't. So do you provide resources for that person or that entity, that group that wants to start a nonprofit? Like if I want to start something, let's say I want to rescue cats. We're talking about cats. I want to rescue cats. And can I contact you and can you say, Amy, that's a really great mission, but there are 50 other cat rescue organizations in your area. You may want to consider something else like that. So could you tell us a little bit about how you help people get started?
Large part of my week is answering questions, literally 2 a day, of, hey, I want to start a nonprofit. And my answer, unlike the chamber, is don't start a nonprofit. Don't do it. If you want to go rescue cats, just go rescue cats. Don't do paperwork. Don't fill out government forms. Don't do all the junk on the backside, because you're going to hate it and you're not going to rescue cats. If you want to go rescue cats, find somebody who's rescuing cats, let them do the paperwork, and you take care of your community. If you're hard over on starting a nonprofit, it's pretty simple. You file your IRS 1023, you get an EIN, and you file with the state as a nonprofit corporation. That's it. I say that's it, but right now the IRS 1023 processing time is about 11.5 months. So if you want to do something in your community, filing paperwork is not helping your community. Go help your community and figure it out somewhere else. Does everybody remember Nonprofit Hub here in Lincoln? They have, I can't remember the website. They have a great set of webinars on how to start a nonprofit. I point people to that. And on the second side of that is, if you don't know what you want to do down to the pennies and the minutes, don't start a nonprofit. Because it takes that level of data evaluation over about 3 years to start getting attention of people who want to change the community. Now, think about, there's another situation where funders or community leaders come to you and say, we're doing this, we need to start a nonprofit. You have the work, it's already being done, you've got proven data that you're doing the good stuff, you've got funding behind you, and in that case, you need to solidify everything that you're doing, go through our guidelines and principles, and then start that nonprofit. So definitely, and we do have resources. I just do not encourage anybody to start a nonprofit. 14,000 nonprofits in Nebraska. If you can't find one that does what you want to do, come and talk to me.
Then you should start one, right?
Then you should start one. Quick data. We've got 14,084 in Nebraska. We've got about 1.9 million people, so that's 139 people for nonprofit. In essence, if everybody gives $1 to if every person gives $1 to nonprofits, every nonprofit's going to get $139. Okay. In taxes, in payroll taxes alone, in 2015, nonprofits paid $263 million. And that's just the tip of the iceberg for the taxes that nonprofits paid and the money they spent in the community. Nonprofits are the third largest, nonprofits are the third largest industry in Nebraska. 1 in 11 people works for a nonprofit. Every single person uses a nonprofit or their tools or results of a nonprofit every day. So think about that as we move forward. A nonprofit is really just a tax status. You're doing good stuff in the community, and I can get on my soapbox for a long time about this one. The government needs to do stuff to protect its citizens. They don't do a certain amount of things. So they're not coercing those taxes to get those things done. You walk in and say, this has to get done. This person's quality of life is horrible. We need to fix it. What you're doing is the government is basically outsourcing to you as a nonprofit. You're getting, the people who donate to you are getting a tax break when they give you money. So the tax money that you would have paid is basically going to the nonprofit. The nonprofit does something the government should be doing to make that quality of life perfect. So in essence, the government is outsourcing what you're doing to nonprofits. Whether you have a government contract or state contract or not, in philosophy, in theory, that's what's happening. So think about that process. Bunch of information there. Obviously, in the business world, you try to make money for your shareholders, do good in the community. The government wants to make sure that they do what is needed for their citizens. For us, we want to make a difference for our stakeholders. We want to affect those people that we're trying to change the quality of life of. And some more data on nonprofits. Nebraska is actually very, very high in volunteership. Sorry about that. This is a melange of slides I threw together for you. Healthcare contributes about $8 billion a year in 2019 to
This just Nebraska.
state economy, correct. Eds and meds, higher education and healthcare is by far the largest sector. They're also the most institutionalized, so think about that. Here we go. This is 2015 data. We pay $263 million in payroll taxes. We volunteer very, very well. We're 6th in the nation for volunteerism, so keep it up. Please help your local community by volunteering your time. And in 2015, $3.9 billion in wages were paid by Nebraska nonprofits. Next time you talk to your state senator, ask them, hey, what if nonprofits went away? Would you like to make up a $263 million shortfall in the state budget? It gets attention real fast. Okay, I get this question all the time from the public is, how do nonprofit people pay their bills at home? They don't get paid. A lot of people think that nonprofit people don't get paid. It's just like any other business. You have to make payroll, you have to do the mission, and you have to have some left over for the next year to do the mission. So contributions and grants in general make up 52%. Program service revenue is about 31%. Again, this is 2015 data. 31% of the revenue that nonprofits use is fee for service, just like for-profits. We're doing something. We're providing a service or a product or something else like that. Pay for it, because we got to keep the doors open. And then the other revenue sources is about 17, and that's multiple and varied depending on which nonprofit you talk to. We're vital to our community. As I said, every single person uses a nonprofit every day. This is the big one that I run into a lot as well. Nonprofits don't pay taxes. Oh my God, do we pay taxes? You would not believe that the tax burden is actually bigger, not bigger. It's more complicated on nonprofits than it is for profits and personal. That's why our nonprofit accountants are making so much money. We still have to follow GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. We still have to follow Sarbanes-Oxley for all of the accountability and stuff like that. So it really is a burden when you want to start a nonprofit and you have to do all this stuff and rescue the cats. Okay. And then I'll leave this slide up for the end, and my contact info is on the next slide. A lot of things in America that you don't really put any thought to every day were started by people who just want to help their community through a nonprofit. Almost every part of life that has protected somebody or has given somebody a better quality of life or provided a service they could not access themselves has been provided by a nonprofit. Okay. That's the end of my soapbox. I can literally talk about this stuff for 4 hours. I love my job. It's the best job in the world.
See, now I say that about my job.
No. I got you. Okay, so research we're doing right now. Obviously, we're closing the guidelines and principles in December, and we're figuring out what nonprofits are not good at. The latest research we're working on is a 3-tiered modal analysis of the importance of nonprofits versus each other. There's no competition in the nonprofit sector. There's always competition in the nonprofit sector. Just talk to fundraisers. If you don't know, nonprofit fundraisers who are good, when they go to another nonprofit, they take their donors with them. It's a relational relationship, not a transactional relationship. Very, very interesting. So what we're working on right now is a 3-tiered modal analysis of what the nonprofit provides in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, food all the way up to self-actualization, the difference between whether they're helping individuals that have capacity to help themselves or they don't have the capacity to help themselves, whether it's socioeconomic, racial, geography, things like that. And then the last axis that we're working on is time. We need to protect the groundwater. Everybody understands we have to protect the groundwater. But if we don't, what year is it going to come back and kill us? Versus, I get people on the street right now who have to have food today. So that's the last axis that we're working on. So the title of the paper, white paper we're going to publish next year is going to be my nonprofit is more important than your nonprofit. It's going to be very, very interesting. Previous papers we've done is isomorphism in the nonprofit community. I'll never forget, January 1st, do I have enough time to tell this story?
Sure.
Okay, January 1st, 2017, the Sherwood Foundation in Omaha, who gives away a boatload of money, put on their grant application for January that in order to get our money, you have to be a member of the nonprofit association.
They talked to you about that before?
47 phone calls later, they did not tell, they said in September, October, hey, we're thinking about doing this. They didn't tell us they were going to put it on the website. 47 phone messages and phone calls later, 2 days later, we went to Sherwood and said, thank you very much, we appreciate that. I don't have to recruit anymore ever. And oh, by the way, could you pay for another staff member because we're going to need them? And by March, they ponied up the cash for us to hire another staff member for about a year until we could pay for it ourselves. So the research we did after that was isomorphism in the nonprofit sector. If you make nonprofits all look the same, all nonprofits are going to look the same, and the only way they change is correction. The hardest and the most effective way to make them change is through coercion. If you give away money to a nonprofit and say, yeah, I want you to rescue cats, but I want you to rescue cats this way, the nonprofit's going to rescue the cats the way you want them to. It may not be the most effective, it may not be the best, it may not be the most cost effective, but that's what's going to happen. So when Sherwood did that, we dug into the research and figured out this could end up being a problem. We talked to all the nonprofit leaders that we could, especially the ones that got Sherwood money, and it basically turned out that, yeah, what Sherwood is doing, trying to professionalize nonprofits, is a good thing. We just don't like it. You know, we have to follow the rules. We have to, you know, do our accounting. We have to do our fundraising the right way. We have to be transparent in accountability. Oh man, Dad's making us sweep the yard now, or sweep the front steps. So we have to clean up our act. It was a very, very interesting research project and research topic that we did, but it basically, fortunately or unfortunately, it caused 7 other foundations to do the same thing. So now, literally, I don't have to recruit. If you want to get money from a major foundation in Omaha, or I'm sorry, a major foundation in Nebraska, you have to join our association. You also have to do guidelines and principles. You also have to report on your salary and your benefits for our salary and benefit report, and a couple other things. So absolutely fascinating stuff that we're doing here. Okay.
Thank you, Kelly.
Any other questions? Sir.
John.
Of course. When you started a minute ago saying you were going to work on a paper, part of your papers for next year is going to be what foundations aren't doing well, or I think that's what you said.
Okay, yeah.
What are some of the things you've observed so far that foundations don't do well?
Okay, manage their money. If you have to give away 5% of your endowment every year and you make 4%, it kind of, yeah. Whoa, okay. I have had, and I hope I don't offend anybody in the room, when we were doing our research, we basically went to a couple program managers and C-suite type people in the foundation said, look, some nonprofit leaders are not happy about this. And I had 2 program managers say, it's our fucking money. They're going to do what we want them to do. There are a couple foundations that understand they work in an ecosystem and they have to play nice with others. And there are other foundations that won't talk to you, don't care about you, just fill in the paperwork and we'll get to you if we can. It really runs the gamut what foundations are doing right and what foundations are doing wrong. But again, it's their money. They can do whatever they want. And you've probably heard this before. I'll say it as many times as I can. It's always easier to give away a dead person's money than a live person's money. Because normally the dead person said, this is what I want you to do. If it's not on the sheet, you don't do it. The live person normally has a couple advisors and can be influenced and they have people around them. So strategies change. Sometimes with live donors, it gets a little tricky when they start thinking about mission changes. A major foundation in Omaha recently completely changed their focus, not in the mission area, but in their geography. They will now no longer fund metropolitan nonprofits. They will only fund rural nonprofits, which was sorely needed, but it was kind of like January 1st, 2017. Tell somebody before you do it. Why are you turning, these 45 people applied for money, why did you just turn them down flatly and give it to these other 45? We're kind of counting on the traditional funding, so. Excellent question. Any other questions? Ma'am.
First of all, thank you for your service.
Yes.
When I'm talking to people about donating to nonprofits, I always tell them you need to check to see if you can find the statistics, how much goes to administration, how much goes to the actual
Yes.
cause. On your site, do you have, and I would presume you do, listed out your nonprofits that you work with? And is there anything on that that states that, or do you encourage your clients to put in that statistic? Because some of them you can't find it.
Exactly. No, we don't. There is enough nonprofit data out there to choke a horse. I'm not going to put it on my website because it changes on a regular basis. If you want to do any research, and if you're a financial geek, Google IRSBMF, the Internal Revenue Service Business Master File. That is the last download of every Form 990 that was filed for the last reporting period. And it's normally 4 times a year, 3 times a year. They come out with that. All 14,086 or whatever in Nebraska are on there. And if you're good at parsing data in Excel, you can find out exactly by geography, by mission type, by revenue, by asset class, all the nonprofit data. The problem comes in, 2 problems come in. The Form 990 that nonprofits have to file as a tax return is complicated. I mean, it's just asininely complicated. And if you go in there, and everybody always tells the truth on IRS forms, right? If you go in there and you know what blocks to pull out of, you can see how much they got, how much they spent on overhead, or how much they spent on administration overhead, how much they spent on the mission. That is a percent, 65%, 95%, whatever. The problem is, if you're running a homeless shelter, or if you have a think tank, the overhead is going to be completely different. So the general public walks in and says, well, I give to this nonprofit because 99% goes to the mission. Okay, maybe they're screwing it up. What is the mission, and how? Let's analyze what the overhead is, or what the overhead should be. Every fall on social media, you'll see the American Red Cross, their overhead is this, and it's all completely junk. What we need is a more educated populace to understand there are differences, there are nuances. If you take the time to understand, then you can figure out if this nonprofit is doing what they said they did and is spending the money the right way. Okay. I'll leave it at that. A lot of other comments on that. So.
Anybody have any other questions?
I have one last one.
Please.
John?
Well, at the beginning, you were talking about all the services that are available.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it's a small nonprofit starting out. Do you have any grant dollars available, or any dollars available to help them be able to obtain that service if they're not in a position right away to do that?
No, I don't. If I had grant dollars, I'd be spending them. We are very clear when we get grant, and again, a very, very long story. When we get money and we ask for money from foundations and funders, we do it only for programs that help nonprofits. We earn money to run our place, in essence, if you will. No. What normally happens is somebody starts running something out of their basement or their garage, and they get their friends involved and they start getting attention, but they lack the piece of evaluating what they're doing in relation to what the community's doing. If you can show what you're doing to help people, help cats, help whatever, people are willing to give. It's just a matter of being able to show it, prove it, and like this. For small nonprofits, it really takes dedication, and it, just like starting a new business, it really takes dedication and the ability to get past that strategic planning process and the initial fundraising.
Maybe you didn't say my question.
Okay, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Let's say you offer these programs.
Yes, yes.
Is there any reduced cost fees that they can take or they come to them that they can be able to take that training or that class or that information?
No.
Okay, same answer.
Same answer. I mean,
Okay.
our smallest nonprofits pay $50 a year
Yeah.
for all of our services.
Okay.
Yeah. Now our trainings have a cost, and some of our services have cost, but we give away. We work on giving away 65% of our services for free. So paying for that 45%, and if you can't pass the hat on your board and get $50, you don't need to be in nonprofit land anyway. So, thanks. Good question. Okay, Summit is November 10th if you want to be there. If you want to be a business partner of ours, send me an email. Literally, especially coaches, I could sell you all day long. If you really want to work a lot more in your, I'm not going to say golden age, in your golden years, if you want to work more, you come and let me know because I can sell you all day long, believe me. If you want to be a business partner, contact me. If you need any nonprofit data, that's what I do. I love parsing out data on nonprofits, looking at results and coming up with conclusions. And if you want to give to a nonprofit, what I highly suggest is go to the IRS webpage and then go to guidestar.org. GuideStar is it's basically an IRS scrape website with user added data, and they evaluate the overhead out of the Form 990 automatically online, and the nonprofit has the ability to put in things like board members, diversity, equity, inclusion in their board and staff, how much money they spent on fundraising and or lobbying every year. So guidestar.org is a great place to go to check out nonprofits.
Thank you, Kelly. Can we give Kelly a hand for his presentation? Thank you very much for coming today. I appreciate it.